get started, everybody, if you could please take a seat. Good evening, everybody. My name is David Jefferson, and I'm going to serve as the moderator for tonight's forum. This forum was organized by 4 groups from our community that have a particular interest in matters that involve special education and the education of students that have unique needs. Tonight's forum is going to be nonpartisan, and our primary focus is to begin an open discussion with the school board candidates about the concerns of people in the community regarding special education practice and policies within the Temecula Valley Unified School District. I'd like to begin this evening by introducing and recognizing each of the hosting organizations. Without their support, this event wouldn't have been possible. I want to start off by recognizing Teresa Sester. Teresa is the owner and an advocate at the AOTS Group. The AOTS Group offers education advocacy, resources, and support to families across California. Their focus is to help parents navigate the special education waters. The AOTS Group also provides assistance to families when they find themselves in need of alternative options to resolve concerns with their school system. The philosophy of the AOTS Group is that every child deserves an equal chance to learn, to achieve, and to contribute to the society, and to graduate from high school ready to pursue college, a career, or a meaningful job so they can be a contributing and productive member of our community. The support they offer families reflects this philosophy. Next, I'd like to recognize Lynn Hardy, who's the owner and clinical director of Temecula Valley Therapy Services. Lynn has a master's degree in science and communication disorders and has over 23 years experience in working with children and adults with speech and language and swallowing impairments. She is also the parent of a child who has an autism spectrum disorder, as well as other learning disabilities. She has another child who is enrolled in the special education programs in the Temecula Valley Unified School District. Next, I'd like to recognize Chris McKeon. Did I get it right? Okay. And they are with the Comprehensive Autism Center. Their mission is to inspire hope and enhance the daily lives of families in the community by providing the best individualized treatment to children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders. By using the principles of applied behavior analysis combined with innovative design, their team seeks to address each child's immediate needs while also creating a path of collaboration between the child, the family, the therapy team, and the community. And finally, I want to recognize our Nicholas Foundation. Our Nicholas Foundation is a local nonprofit whose primary mission is to increase awareness of autism and to provide financial support for education, therapies, families, and research organizations that enrich the lives of children with autism spectrum disorders. Our Nicholas Foundation is 100% volunteer ran with no salaries paid, and they're thankful for the overwhelming support they receive from the Temecula community. Thank you again to all of our sponsors. We appreciate your efforts in making this forum possible. I'd like to provide an overview of the format for tonight's forum. As you entered the chamber this evening, you were provided with an index card. So for those in the gallery, if you have an opportunity, please fill out the card. We have 2 young ladies who are in the front row who will be collecting those cards. So if you have questions, please let them know. They'll be circling and they'll be collecting those cards. We're going to do our best to group the questions that we have this evening into some type of arrangement so we can ask multiple questions within one question. There will be questions that we will not be able to ask based on time, and we will provide those to the candidates after the forum. We would ask that the candidates in the next week take the time to answer whatever questions they feel comfortable answering, and then we'll be posting those questions online, and they will be on the AOTS Group's website. I also want to reiterate that this is a nonpartisan event, so keep that in mind for people in the galleries who are asking questions. Our focus tonight is to really gain a better understanding of the candidates' positions and understanding of the matters that concern this constituency of parents and the issues that center around special education and children with unique educational needs. Tonight, we're going to hear remarks from each of the candidates. each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute opening statement. When each candidate has completed their opening statement, the first of several questions will be asked. I want to point out that I don't know any of the candidates. I have not met them before, and they have not been provided a list of questions that they'll be asked. Our timekeeper tonight will be Matt Sester. He's seated in the front row. He will provide candidates a reminder when they have 20 seconds left for their response time and then when time is up. I want to begin by introducing each of the candidates. They're seeking election into one of 3 open seats in the Temecula Valley School Board. These are important roles, and again, tonight we hope to hear them address the substantive issues that face our community, and more specifically, the issues that face families who have children with unique special education needs in Temecula. I also want to thank the candidates for their gracious acceptance of participation in this forum. I want to start out first by welcoming Cheryl Eckert. She's seated all the way to my left. I want to next recognize Julie Farnbach, and then Mr. Kevin Hill, Ms. Sandy Hinkson, Mr. Mark Caton, and finally, Mr. Richard Schaefer. Thank you again, everybody, for your participation this evening. We're going to now begin with opening statements. For each of the candidates, I would like to ask that you make sure you speak clearly and that you use a louder voice. We have microphones, but we want to make sure everybody can hear. For the opening statement, I'd like each candidate to take 1 minute and explain why they're interested in politics in general, and more specifically, why they're running for a position on the Temecula School Board. Let's begin with Ms. Eckert.
Good evening. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you tonight. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself first. My husband Dwight and I moved here to Temecula over 22 years ago, and one of the reasons we did move here, we were drawn to Temecula, was because of the good quality of education. We have 4 children. They have all attended Temecula schools, and they had great experience. They were very well prepared for college, and each of them have attended a University of California and have graduated. I've been involved in advocacy for children since before my children were born. And I've been involved in their education and other aspects of their life, whether it be through scouting, through PTA, through the Education Foundation at Chaparral, numerous committees within the district. I'm involved in the local task force here with the city for health and family safety, and I'm involved with Million Kids. I have been a substitute teacher within Temecula for the past 14 years, and I've substituted at the elementary and middle school level and in various classes, including special ed. I think I bring a unique perspective to the school board.
Thank you.
That was my time. I'm sorry.
Yes. Next, I would like to recognize Ms. Julie Farnbach.
1 minute is difficult. I'm the mother of 4, 2 in college, 2 in high school, all students of this district. I'm a dietitian, a piano teacher, a Sunday school teacher, a history, government, and literature mentor. I'm a systems analyst up here, a news junkie, and I'm not pleased. We also moved to Temecula Valley 11 years ago because of the great schools. And Temecula, makes no doubt, does many things very well. But people don't usually run for office to support the status quo, do they? I'm running because we need to make some changes and improvements. I wish someone who knew about Child Find had found my son in elementary school. I wish I had known there were services available for a child who's gifted, but who also has ADD, Asperger's, sensory integration issues, and anxiety. I wish that his teacher and principal had offered help instead of blame before I pulled him out of public school for his safety and sanity and mine. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. I'm here to give back, to inject a fresh perspective into the conversation, to ask hard questions, tackle the complicated issues, and to be part of the solution.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kevin Hill.
My name is Kevin Hill. We moved up here about 20 years ago when we bought a house. I have 4 daughters that went to school here from elementary all the way up through high school. They've all graduated, and now I have 2 granddaughters that are starting school in the district. A little bit about myself. I have 3 master's degrees. One's in forensic science. The second one is in special education. And my third one is as a school psychologist. I've got a clear special ed credential, and I've been teaching special ed over 20 years. That's about all about me.
Thank you. Ms. Sandy Hinkson.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Sandy Hinkson. My family and I are longtime residents of Temecula. We're vested in the community and the education of its students. Both my husband and I are experienced Temecula teachers. I moved to Temecula in 1990, and I've been part of the growth of the area and an active participation in the creation of our excellent school district. I'm a recently retired Temecula teacher with 22 years of classroom experience at various levels. I have a master's degree in teaching and a Bachelor of Science in biology. My husband, Brad, he's out there. He's a beloved band director at Temecula Middle School. My son attended Temecula schools and is a graduate of the Art Institute of California. My business background comes from over 15 years' experience, including store manager for Target and small business owner. I have the business and financial skills needed to analyze, evaluate, manage, and question our district and state budgets. I'm running for school board because I believe the school board will benefit from... Oh, am I done?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Yes, thank you. Next, Mr. Mark Caton.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions and hopefully learn as much as I can to represent all of the community members appropriately. I'm a Temecula resident, have been since 1989. I came here with Target stores. I opened the original Target here in town, was with them 17 years and have retired from Target, currently operate the Office Depot here in town as a manager. I originally got into politics with the intent of helping. I've been serving on the Traffic Commission. I served on the Traffic Commission for 6 years. I've been active in a lot of different organizations. The Temecula Valley Foundation for Excellence in Education is my primary focus. I work each year putting on the Taste of Temecula Valley along with a group of tremendous volunteers. So it's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Richard Schaefer.
Well, Sharon and I moved to Temecula in 1988.
I think your microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
My wife Sharon and I moved to Temecula in 1988 and were the proud parents of 4 adult daughters who attended the school district schools. One daughter even returned to the valley and teaches in the district now. As a result, we remain concerned parents and now grandparents still actively involved in the development of the education in the valley. I'm a certified public accountant, partner in a local CPA firm, and graduated from Northwest Nazarene University in Nampa, Idaho with a BA degree in business administration with an emphasis in accounting. I'm active in the community through my business, my church, and a 17-year member of the governing board. Why did I choose to run again? A lot of people ask me that question. My decision is twofold. One is I hired the superintendent. I like the leadership, where it's going. I'm here tonight to listen to the special education community and see what I need to hear from them. But I also don't want to leave unfinished business because of the current period of impasse that we have with the associations.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the candidates for your opening statements. We're going to begin going through some of the questions. One of the things we did is we asked each of our sponsoring organizations to reach out to the families that they serve within our community to provide their input and to provide their questions. And we've done our best to encapsulate their feedback into these questions. In addition, we'll be asking questions that relate to those concerns, and then we'll also be asking questions that relate to things from within the community. Our first question, and this question is going to begin with Ms. Eckert. Disagreements about the level of special education services school districts offer children are frequently the source of contention between parents and school administrators. Many parents in the community feel that school districts use financial considerations to drive decisions related to special education students and not the students' unique needs. These decisions range from where the child is placed in special education to the services that are provided. Parents feel this leads to a cookie-cutter approach to services, meaning that all students get the same offer regardless of their individual needs. What awareness do you have regarding this concern? How have you gained that awareness? And what steps will you take to address it if you're elected to the school board?
I can only say that I'm not aware that there is a cookie cutter formula for assessing children. The many parents I know that are involved with the special ed department are, for the great majority of them, very happy with the relationship they have with their teacher and with their school. I'm sure there are other instances where people are not happy. You know, special education is a team approach. It's not decided, any decision is not decided by a teacher or one administrator or one parent. It really takes a collaboration to determine what is the best situation for that child, where he or she is going to be best served, and the school itself, for their safety, for their well-being, for their longevity in education. I would, if there are those issues, I would certainly like to hear more about them.
Thank you very much. Ms. Farnbach, the question is to you.
What I know about it is very little. I have not received special education services for any of my children in this district. I know that in every bureaucracy, there's a very real tug of war between finance and people's needs. And in education, I think, is the most important place for us to come together and communicate well and cooperate to do what's best for our children. How I would do that, or how I came to know that, that was the second part of the question, right? I have been observing this district for 11 years. I used to work for a state organization for disabled people. So I know a little bit about what they need. I know a lot more than I'd like to about bureaucracy, and I'm committed to cutting red tape wherever we can. The board makes policy. Policy needs to be focused on the people, on the end result. We need to support communication and trust between parents and the schools.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes. Unfortunately, I've been involved with special ed as a teacher. I've been frustrated in the past because I've actually seen districts try to limit the amount of support that they give some of these kids. And I've been frustrated by it because I've asked for some things for the kids and was told many times just to keep my mouth shut and not say anything. It did upset me a lot, and unfortunately, I've seen it in a lot of different districts. Unfortunately, a lot of the time they try to watch their budget, and they have to keep the support down. I'm not saying that that's the way it should be. I don't believe that should be. I think that they need to work with the kids, and it should be for the kids. And if it costs a little bit more, then that's what they need to do. Unfortunately, having been in special ed, it just seems to me that I've been teaching it for 20 years. I've got a master's in it, and I've actually seen it working. Nowadays, there seems to be a lot more administrators within special ed and not enough teachers.
We're at time, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Ms. Hinkson.
Okay, so my experience has been as a classroom teacher, and I've sat in on many IEPs for students, and I've personally not had that experience that you're discussing as far as seeing anything limited because of finances or anything like that. Not having that experience, though, I think that's really important as a school board member, that you're accessible to parents who have issues so that you can listen and do the best job that you can for every student. As a classroom teacher, that was always my goal, looking at the needs of each and every student and doing the best that I could for them and what their special needs were.
Thank you very much. Mr. Caton.
I've heard the concerns as well, and I understand that the one thing that doesn't ever seem to come up from any of the parents is the fact that they love the teachers and the students love the teachers and the ability of the teachers to provide what the student needs. Most of the complaints that I've heard fall to the administration, and that would be my biggest concern. Obviously, as a school board member, we have a tremendous amount of focus on special education. In fact, the staff list is probably twice as big as the general education one. And it would be a matter of looking at the funding and making sure that each student is getting exactly what they need. Currently, at yesterday's or Tuesday's school board meeting, they covered the fact that they're $25 million over in expenses for the special education areas. So considering that, it's going somewhere, and we need to get it back to the kids.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schaefer.
As to the cookie cutter approach, and I've heard expressed to me that we have a policy of delay and deny. I don't think that's the case. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. I don't see a cookie cutter approach. Being a CPA, I do realize that, and for 17 years, I've heard this over and over and over again, that the money that we spend on special education, we don't get reimbursed totally for. For this last year, it was $21 million that we spent. We got reimbursed $5 million, so the rest of the money comes from the general fund. But that's why people talk about this, and it costs money, but we need to offer the services that best work for the kids, and I'm willing to listen, so.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question goes to Ms. Farnbach. Parents and school teams work very hard to develop individual special education plans for students. Parents frequently express concerns regarding the implementation of these plans in the general education classroom. What level of accountability do you feel is appropriate for teachers in the classroom, school administrators, and the district leadership when there's a failure to implement a special education plan for a student? And then the second part of that is, what steps will you take to address this issue if you're elected to the school board?
So the first half of that is, how is it implemented in the classroom?
The first part of the question, I apologize, is what level of accountability do you feel is
Level of
appropriate
accountability.
if the plans aren't implemented in the classroom, at the classroom level, at the administrative level, and then at the district leadership level? And then the second part of the question is, what steps will you undertake to address the issue?
Okay. Implementation at the classroom level is critical. That's where the rubber meets the road. So the accountability has to be there. However, if we're not getting support from administration, from the school board, that's going to fall down. And teachers in general have the students' best interests at heart. They want to do as much as they can for that child. But they're stretched so thin and spend so much time documenting that they often feel overwhelmed and things slip through the cracks. So my perspective on this is to tighten up the system. We need to support that teacher in whatever way possible, whether it's training or aids so that they can do what the IEP says. And there's no point in having an IEP if we're not actually going to carry it out. So my big push is to cut through red tape, assist communication, and to alter the system so that doing the right thing for the student is what is rewarded.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yeah, implementation of the student's plan is basically the responsibility of the teacher. And I think that for the most part, the teachers are trying to meet that responsibility as best they can. A lot of times there just aren't enough therapists. There's not enough time in the day to get to everybody that you need to get to. I just don't think that there's enough of the teachers to actually do it. We seem to have a lot of administrators that are standing around telling us what we need to do and what we should be doing, but they're not actually getting in there and helping out. They're the first ones to criticize, but they're not the first ones to step in and help bail it out if you need the help. And we lack a lot of the therapists. We just don't have the manpower. And I think they need to find more therapists or train more therapists or get more therapists so that we can make sure that all the students get what they need.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Hinkson.
Okay, well, again, my experience is mostly as being a classroom teacher, and from what I've seen is it really all involves around the teacher and the parent having good communication. I always found that it was just critical that I knew the child's IEP, I knew what their needs were, and I also had personal contact with the parents to know how they felt and what, beyond just what's on a piece of paper, what are the child's needs, okay? And I think that that's very, very important. Also, that's really a partnership. It's not just something that you're working individually as a teacher or a parent towards. We work together, and the communication there is really just essential. I've worked with many children over my time very successfully, providing a least restrictive environment, differentiated instruction, just meeting their needs socially, and having kids mainstreamed into my classroom. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Caton.
The IEPs, the biggest concern or the biggest value of that is that the teacher is going to follow through on it and to hold them accountable to it. Unfortunately, as a school board member, we don't have the position to control personnel decisions. But the important piece is that the parent has the ability to communicate with the teacher and get that buy-in that they're either getting the class attention that they need and getting the IEP completed. Obviously, I don't have the experience in that area, but I'm definitely willing to learn and to make a difference.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shaver.
As has been previously stated, it starts with the teacher, and to accomplish that, there's the training that takes place offered by the school district to deal with special needs kids. And then from there, it has to be accountable to the principal and to the administration. And ultimately, we hear about it if there's issues, and we have to respond to issues that may come before us in this. But that's all.
Okay. I'm going to ask a follow-up, and I'm going to ask it from each of you, and we're going to do 30 seconds for this one. Because although I believe everybody provided a thoughtful answer, I don't know that... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cheryl. I apologize.
I believe the responsibility of the IEP lies not just with the teacher, because an IEP involves 5, 6, 7, 8 people: the parent, the teacher, the general ed teacher, anyone that the child is receiving services from, the administrator. And so they all have that responsibility to communicate and to see if any accommodation is not being met or any service is not being met for that child. And communication is the key there, because they shouldn't wait till the next IEP or the next assessment comes around to find out that that child did not get that service. So just as a board member, I would hope that we could communicate that to our staff. And I know they have some TOSAs now that are working with the special ed department, and maybe they can lend support to those teachers to help out with their caseloads.
Thank you very much. I want to ask a follow-up question, and I want each person to take 30 seconds to answer it. And we're going to start again back. I believe we started with Ms. Farnbuck last time. We're going to start with you again because it's a follow-up. So my question more specifically, the primary role of a school governing board is to determine policies and practices for the school district. So what I'd like everybody to answer is, do you believe accountability is important if there's a clear indication that a teacher in a classroom did not implement an IEP? While I agree that collaboration is important and communication is important, the first question is, do you believe accountability is important? And the second question is, should that accountability fall at the teacher level, the administrator level, at the district level? And then the follow-up for that is, what steps will you take if you believe accountability is important to define what that is? Because again, as a school governing board, defining policy and practice is your primary responsibility. Ms. Farnbach, we'll start with you.
Definitely, the board sets the tone, and that's one of the reasons I'm running. We need to fix the culture. But specifically, accountability, it's the teacher's job to implement, and all the therapists that work together with the team, but it's the administrator's job to make sure that that's happening. So accountability needs to come at the administrative level. If there are problems at the classroom level, the administrator needs to step in and support or correct or remind or whatever. As far as, okay, your questions are so long. I didn't get to write down
The second
everything.
piece of it is, what policies will you enact if you
What
believe that
policies would I
accountability is
enact?
necessary?
Well, is that my time? You want me to go ahead and answer that?
You can take another 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you need, and I'll give everybody else the same courtesy.
We need to change the system so that it rewards the right behaviors. So however we decide the accountability needs to play out, it needs to be on paper, and it needs to be written in a way that people are going to naturally want to cooperate with it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hill.
Currently, turn that on. Currently, it falls directly on the teacher as the person that makes sure that the IEP is followed. Unfortunately, the teacher doesn't always get the support from the administration that they need. Because, like I said, they don't have enough therapists, they don't have enough support staff, whatever. They can only offer what they have. And if they don't have it, if there's not enough therapists to get to so that Johnny can have his therapy for that week, if they don't have the manpower, they can't provide that service. And that shouldn't be the teacher's fault. The teacher's making sure that everybody knows it needs to be done, but it needs to go back up to the higher levels to make sure that it's being done. And unfortunately, everybody wants to turn around and point the finger at the teacher that it's not being done. So it's going to have to be a joint thing. You just can't put all the responsibility on the teacher. There's also the administration as well.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hinkson.
Okay, my understanding is that there are policies in place and that there are legal requirements already. And I feel that if, and also we have some additional things in the LCAP plan for additional training for teachers. And I think that if those things are not being implemented correctly, that the people who are responsible should be held accountable, whether that be the teacher. The next level obviously would be the principal, the district administrator, and ultimately the superintendent. And then the school board holding all of those people in turn responsible. there's annual reviews that happen also, and those should, any problems should pop up during those annual reviews if things are not being implemented correctly and we have a problem. So I think ultimately there is a process in place, and just knowing about that and being able to follow through and hold those people accountable who are accountable.
Thank you very much. Mr. Caton?
Working in the private sector, you see accountability as the number one thing that is valued. If you aren't held accountable for your actions, there's no progress, your career, your reports, your evaluations, none of that matters. So to hold a teacher accountable to deliver on the expectations is square one. If you can't do that, then there has to be disciplinary action. And who's responsible? It has to start with the teacher. Yes, it will go to the administrator, but if the teacher's in a situation where they're not given the time to deliver on an IEP, then they should be addressing it then, not after, and saying, or utilizing that as their excuse. I don't have the time to do this, or I don't have the time to do that. If you don't have the time, go to your administrator, make the issue early so that you can actually impact that child. If you're there, that's your job, you know what it is, deliver.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schaefer?
As a board member, we deal with policy, and we need to make sure the policy covers the accountability process from teacher on up. We need to make sure that we're providing the training so that they have the tools to do the job right. And we need to listen to the community when there are issues. I've got some numbers that I'll talk about later, but we've got a good district that deals with special education. And I'll share that in my closing comments.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Eckert?
I would agree with everybody that accountability is key, and that even though it does start with the teacher in the classroom, whatever teacher that is, the SPED teacher, the general ed teacher, or adaptive PE teacher, wherever the fault is occurring, that responsibility lies on them, but that I would hope that we could be proactive and reach out to them and see what kind of support they need so that that IEP doesn't wait for a year to find out that there's something missing, that we could that teacher could reach out to her administrator and say, I need help in fulfilling this IEP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question is going to go to you, Mr. Hill, and I'm going to read a statement and then I'll get to the question. This question is submitted by Catherine and Doug Snodgrass. They're a family in the community, and their son Jesse is a student who has autism, who was entrapped by an undercover police officer, arrested and handcuffed in class in front of his fellow students. He was incarcerated for 3 days, and all as a part of an undercover sting that occurred on 3 Temecula Valley Unified School District campuses. 22 students were arrested, and according to the data from Temecula Valley Unified School District, 9 of those students were in special education. Many of those students spent Christmas and New Year's behind bars. There's no data that has ever existed to support the efficacy of undercover stings in schools, yet this happened in our city and under the current school board's watch. This was a program that Temecula Valley Unified School District authorized, knowing it would end in many of their students being thrown into jail and having their futures destroyed. Even after a criminal judge found Jesse to be innocent, Temecula Valley School District attempted to expel him, so an administrative law judge ordered that he return to his school. After all of this, the current board voted, behind closed doors, to spend thousands of tax dollars on an appeal process that wouldn't have went to court until after Jesse's graduation. The story made national news, and the coverage is not going to end there. There are millions of people now who view the school board's actions as arrogant, out of touch, and they question the competence of the decisions. If things don't change, a million more people throughout our country will have the same view. The family has expressed their concerns that not once has anybody from the district apologized to their son, to the other children that were affected, or to their family. So the question is, What are your feelings regarding this type of aggressive policing of our students? And how do you balance that with effective counseling services being provided?
I'm not sure what kind of counseling services that they provide now for the school and for the students as well. As far as what happened in law enforcement, I think that they handled it wrong. They should not have gone into the classroom and made the arrest there. They should have probably called them into the office, and if they were going to do something, then it should have been done there. I can't control what the sheriff does. The other thing is I think that the school board, if they knew about it, they weren't a part of it, or at least I hope they weren't a part of it. If they had had their own school police department or security department, they would be able to work with the sheriff's department, and then the school board would know what's going on, if in fact all this sting had happened without their knowledge. I think that they made a big mistake when they didn't step forward and say, hey, we had no idea this was going on, and apologize if there's been a mistake. I don't think that's a bad thing. If you make a mistake, admit it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hinkson.
I too am aware of this issue, and I definitely have some points of view on it. I think that it's very inappropriate to try to befriend a student with special needs. Those students typically have social issues and are quick to want to find a friend. And I think if we have undercover officers in the school district, that it's very important that just like the teachers need to know who the students are with special needs, if we have other people in the school that are going to be involved in that type of action, they need to know as well, because they're putting those students in a very precarious position, okay? So I think that the whole thing never should have happened. It should have been handled in a much different way. And I also wanted to address the counseling services, which I feel are very much lacking overall because of budget cuts that have happened, and specifically for students who have special needs.
Thank you. Mr. Caton.
I too am aware of the situation, and obviously it's an embarrassment to the city of Temecula. The national press, all of that information that has come up on that situation should have never happened. Combination of an overzealous police force trying to make arrests, trying to get the control on the situation, but to utilize children in that special needs area is just so inappropriate that they would even consider that was the action to take and the avenue to make that to make those arrests. Yes, the school district should give an apology. Those parents deserve it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schaefer.
I think the actions generated by the police department, they're trying to stop drug issues on campuses. It was inappropriate to target a special needs child. 4 of the 5 board members didn't know what was happening until after it happened. I feel sorry for the young man and what he had to go through. And it isn't something that, if we had known that was going to take place, and there was the possibility that you could target special needs child, I think we would have done something about it. But
Thank you, sir. Ms. Eckert.
This is an ugly bruise on TVUSD and on Temecula because it reflects bad on our city as a whole. I think communication could have gone a long ways to avoid the situation. As Mr. Schaefer said, only the board president knew that this was happening at our schools. If we can't trust all 5 board members with information like that, there's something wrong. And the principals at those schools did not know that they had undercover cops on their campus as well. If you can't trust your administrator at your school, then there's something wrong. And that's a culture that needs to be changed in our district. We need to communicate that. Those parents, those students should be apologized to. They should never have been targeted. If that communication had occurred to begin with, I think that could have been avoided, and we could have saved a lot of money and a lot of heartache.
Thank you. Ms. Hornbach.
I was outraged when I heard this story break for many reasons. First of all, this should have gone for the whole board, not just the board president. It needed to be discussed and it needed to be vetted, because I guarantee you that the board president at the time did not know that the sheriff's office is financially benefited by making drug arrests. That's part of why we need to look at our systems and our policies and make sure that we are promoting the appropriate behaviors. They were motivated to make money. Second of all, drug-free campuses are important, but that's why we have our, oh, now I'm blanking on the name, the SROs, right, on campus. If they see a problem and they have a pretty good take on what's going on campus, then to invite the police to make an appropriate investigation would be fine. But the people at the campus level know the kids. There should never be any targeting. The police should never have taken that kid away. Somebody should have stepped in and said, look, you don't understand. He cannot be held accountable for this. It's outrageous. And that they have not apologized is really a bigger bruise, I think, than the original indiscretion.
Thank you. The next question is going to go to you, Ms. Hingston. Parents have the right to seek administrative relief if they cannot resolve disagreements with the school district regarding special education matters. A few weeks ago, a court case involving the Solana Beach School District and their refusal to resolve a $6,000 dispute was resolved by the courts. The end result is that the district is now responsible for nearly $1 million in attorney's fees. Many feel this could have been avoided if a common sense approach had been used when the parents expressed concerns. So the question is, what role do you feel the school board should play when parents express concerns with special education matters? And if you're elected to the board, how will you make yourself available to members of the community so you're aware of their concerns?
Okay, so I think there's a couple issues here. You're talking about a common sense approach. That all comes down to knowing what the issues are and good communication. I think that being transparent and having good communication and being accessible, whether it's through email, small meetings, groups, parent surveys, whether they're online or voice surveys that address the issues and find out what we're doing well and what we can improve on. I think that those are just critical. And just being available to the community, whatever community that is. We have a lot of different students in our district, and we're trying to meet the needs of all of them, and being available to understand the needs of every child from every group and listen to each other so we can do the best job possible.
Thank you. Mr. Caton?
Obviously, as a school board member, your concerns are for all students and every issue. You have to be available for communication through email, phone calls, any way that they can get the message to you. Obviously, lawsuits are the last course. We need the ability to listen to the issue and make those common sense choices prior to a lawsuit. All of those funds come out of the general fund, and every time there's a lawsuit, those funds are taken away from every student in the district. And the fact that we waste money in lawsuits is the worst thing available to use with your funding. Everybody complains about all the limited funding that's coming in from the state and from the federal government, yet we'll waste money defending and hiring lawyers. The only ones that are going to make money are the attorneys. It's not helping anybody else.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schaefer.
It's really important to be open, have an open door policy, to have people call you, or we used to have beepers 15 years ago, but now it's email. So getting email and responding to email, listening. Part of the reason I'm here is to listen to the community and just be more accessible. Common sense says that you shouldn't be spending legal fees if you can resolve an issue in other fashions, but there are times when that doesn't happen. I wouldn't want to get into a large legal suit. Like was said, the attorneys get most of it. So.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Eckert.
I understand our district probably does waste a lot of money on lawsuits, unfortunately, and it does take away from our general fund. That's not smart governing, and I would think that if you foster a culture of transparency and accessibility and being available to the public and being at the school sites and being available to the community members, that should at least help it and cut down on some of that.
Thank you. Ms. Farnbach.
Again, the board sets the tone. In our increasing litigious society, it's not surprising that these things happen, but it wouldn't happen if we had basic trust. We need parents to trust administrators, and administrators need to be trustworthy. If I'm elected to the board, I will be on one school campus every week, all day, available to hear parents, teachers, administrators. I will have an open door policy like the one that I saw when we moved here 11 years ago. Our motto used to be student-centered, first, last, always, and now it's not. It's high-quality teaching and learning for all. And that might not be a huge difference, but it tells me we've transferred our priorities from what's best for the kids to this is the service we offer, take it or leave it. I have a problem with that. I think we need to change the culture and go back to, I'm sorry that you're concerned and feel like filing a lawsuit. Let's sit down and talk. What can I do to help you?
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with what she just said. I plan on making myself available to parents and teachers, either through a website or email. And whenever they have a group get-together, and if they were to invite me, I'd be more than happy to attend and listen to whatever they have to say about it. Because my basic philosophy has always been, since I became a teacher, was what's right for the kids. It's not a question of what's right for the budget or what's right for the teachers. It's for the kids. And that's my primary feeling. And a lot of times I haven't seen it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I want to be there and be able to stand up and say, hey, is this the best thing for the kids? It's not what's good for our budget or can we afford this. In the long run, it's cheaper, like I said, to do the $6,000 whatever the child needed, rather than to pay attorney's fees in the long run. It's just not worth it.
Thank you, sir. The next question is to you, Mr. Caton. State and federal law requires school districts to identify students with unique needs that might require special education supports through a process called Child Find. Parents in the community have expressed concerns with the district's actions in this regard. Why do you feel that special needs children are not being identified and are being pushed through the system without receiving the help and the support they need.
The only thing I could even think of would be the training of the primary teachers as the students enter into the early grades, that they're able to identify those needs. If they don't identify it in kindergarten and first grade, the possibility of the child going through the whole system with marginal performance is at risk. The only thing that I could think of would be training and development of the people that are working with them. Not that I don't think that they are trained and currently aware of that, but that would be my only answer to address it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schaefer?
Granted, we don't live in a perfect world, but I think that TVUSD does a good job in identifying the students. The Department of Education came in and reviewed us last year, and we're well above norms. They gave us great feedback, and we're waiting for the written report. They gave us oral comments about the verification process, and we can't be, I would expect that we wouldn't be perfect, but we'd be doing, on the majority of the time, we'd be doing exactly and identifying the kids in a proper manner.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ms. Eckert?
I don't know to what degree this is a problem within our district, because I don't know personally anybody who has not received services that requested services. Everyone I know that went through the process, whether it be from preschool or from kindergarten up, were identified and are receiving services. But I imagine, since you're bringing this up, that somebody is falling through the cracks. And I would assume and I would hope that there is a process for those parents and families that are falling through the cracks, that they have an alternate way of appealing a decision. As every student has, a right to a public education. And if their needs aren't being met, then they need to be reevaluated.
Thank you. Ms. Farnbach?
One of the words Cheryl just used raises my concerns. When it's your child falling through the cracks, it doesn't matter what the excuse is or what the statistics say. My child fell through the cracks because I didn't know that services were available or that he qualified for them. We need to reach out and educate the parents. We cannot wait for the teachers to catch on. They're busy with 25 to 35 kids just trying to manage a classroom and get through a lesson plan. We can't wait a year for them to get to know our child and to realize that they are such an outlier that there may be an issue. So we need to educate the parents, but we also need to work with the teachers. The system as it is disincentivizes their discovery of children with needs, because when they see a child with needs and identify it, they have just increased their workload. We need to change that.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Okay, my daughter was in special education, and I remember going to the elementary school and talking to the principal and asking that she be held back a year, only because of the fact that it would have less of an impact if she was held back earlier than waiting a couple of years to find out that she needed to be held back. But unfortunately, he decided he knew better than the parent, and he did what he felt was right instead of what I felt as the parent was right. And I've never forgotten that, and I feel that the parents have the last say as to what should happen, having been a parent of a special ed child. I think that Unfortunately, unless a child is physically handicapped, that they can actually see that there's a problem, they get the assistance, whereas the parent would, having been living with the child and knows that there's a problem, I think that needs to be addressed quicker. A lot of times it's not. The child has to be 2 years behind in its education before they're considered to be a special education child. Usually by second grade, they're identified. And unfortunately, it's too late. They're already 2 years behind.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hinkson?
Okay, that's a big question. I don't think I can answer it in 30 seconds, so I'm going to talk really, really fast. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so part of the issue here, I think, is that about children being pushed through the system without being identified. And I guess my experience, it is a little bit frustrating when you're a teacher and you do recognize that a child has some learning issues or whatever it might be. So the first process usually starts with something called a student study or student success team, an SST meeting. That can be a pretty lengthy process because you're going through identifying some issues, coming back and revisiting them. Are we making improvements? And sometimes I think my frustration was that would carry from year to year, and you're starting all over when you get a new teacher who has to become familiar with everything again. So speeding along that process so that we can get into the referral process and have students evaluated, I think is critical. That's number one. I know that I've experienced a lot of that frustration. The second part about early identification with child finding, to me, relates a little bit to this, as well as the issue of preschoolers. And the district has a responsibility to notify the community of services available for preschoolers in Part C and Part B.
Okay, thank you very much. And this question is to you, Mr. Schaefer. All of you this evening have heard concerns that have been expressed by parents that have students with learning differences or special needs. From your perspective, what are the top 3 parent concerns regarding special education in the Temecula School District? And what are 2 actions you will commit to that the members of the community can hold you accountable to should you be reelected on the school board to address those concerns?
The concern I've heard about most is that we've been accused of delaying and denying services. If I would become aware of a situation like that, I would notify the superintendent. I don't think that happens very often. Like I said, it's not a perfect world with as many students as we've got in this district. If I felt we were delaying and denying, I'd do something about it from a board perspective, but I don't think that's the policy.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Eckert.
Probably the 3 main concerns that I've heard about are mistakes on IEPs, proper placement for a child in the least restrictive environment, and then the issue of graduation versus receiving a diploma versus a certificate of completion. From people I've talked to, those seem to be the 3 that come up. If I was a board member, I would certainly, we have a responsibility to address all of those. I think we spoke about a couple of them earlier regarding IEPs and accountability. Least restrictive environment, again, is a team effort. Parents and the teachers and the administrators trying to find the best placement for that child. And I'm not completely familiar with the diploma versus completion. I know kids who have received completion, and they seem completely happy with being able to do that, going through the bridge program at the high schools. But I know it's an issue for parents as well.
Thank you. Ms. Farnbach?
I am not in the midst of living with the use of special education services, but what I see are parents who have trouble communicating with their teachers. I see kids falling through the cracks, and I see issues with trust that prevent parents from even attempting further communication because it seems like they're beating their head against the wall. So my 2 steps are actually part and parcel of the same. We need to create a system for formal communication both ways. We need the teachers to be letting parents know how things are going and what they've done and what they haven't accomplished. And that needs to happen weekly, if not monthly. And then parents need to have a formal way of getting feedback back to those teachers. Now, the motivated, caring teachers will use email and the phone to take care of that. But if this is a ubiquitous problem across the district, we need a formal system to make sure that it happens.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
I think the 3 top concerns are making sure that the students get their services and that they have enough special ed teachers with smaller classes and the proper placement. When I was a teacher, still am, I've always had an open door policy. Whenever a parent wanted to come in, they're more than welcome to come in, talk to me. They can sit in the class as far as I'm concerned. I have no problem with that. I've always tried to make myself available to the parents. I've always had a real good relationship with most of the parents and have been able to sit down with them after school, before school, and discuss their placement and what was best for their child. And I, as a board member, if I was elected, I think I would probably do the same thing, make myself available to parents, teachers, groups. Like I said, if they wanted me at a PTA meeting, all they have to do is invite me. Same thing with one of the groups here. If they wanted a board member to be there, I'd be more than happy to show up.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hinkson?
Okay, some of the concerns I think are, number one, making sure that every child's needs are met so that they can reach their full potential. The social growth of each child is important as well. And preparing, it really is every student, but preparing students for success in the real world. I think that some of the actions as a school board can take, first of all, is listening. And really listening, being available and accessible, two-way communication, and collaboration. Those are things that I think are missing in a lot of things that our current school board does. There's more of a top-down feeling than a feeling of collaboration, and that goes from special ed to teachers to whatever group it is. A feeling of being left out of the process and not being part of making the decisions that make sense for students.
Thank you. Mr. Caton?
Of the 3 issues that I've heard, parents not feeling that their concerns are being heard, that their things that they see in their children are being addressed, that they're using funding and money as the source for whether or not the child gets the care that they deserve, and that they feel that that's the concern, and not identifying special needs or following up on IEPs. Obviously, the number one thing is to listen and make ourselves available as much as possible. I would definitely be able to do that. I've been working in this community for 25 years, and I see a lot of customers, and to me, they're customers, hopefully in the future, they're constituents. The advantage is to be able to listen to them. I'm available. I can hear what they need. We can bring them up as items for the board, but address the items before they get out of control, before they get blown up into a situation that's unmanageable.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the questions that we're going to have this evening. And at this time, we're going to allow each candidate 1 minute to do a closing statement. This is your opportunity to share anything you feel like this group of parents who are in the chamber, as well as parents in the community who will see the recording of this. This is your opportunity to share with them who you are and why they should choose you to be a member of their school board. We're going to start with Ms. Eckert.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the commitment that you make every day to your child, whether they be a special ed student or a general ed student. I think that we've heard this phrase so many times before, but I find it to be so true. It does take a village to raise a child. So when our parents and our families take an active role in your children's education, both at home and at school, they have a much better chance of continuing their education. I think if, as a school board member, if we reach out to our community members, to our school staff, to our parents, then we will communicate more transparently and we can work together more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Farnbach.
The volcano, which is my passion for freedom and education, has mostly been lying dormant for the past 24 years, with occasional rumblings and venting of steam. But now that 2 of my children are in college and 2 are in high school, it's time to get more involved. As a lifelong learner, I am anxious to learn more about the needs of the special education community. As I've already mentioned, it's something that I wish I'd known more about a long time ago. But the reason I'm running for this seat is because school board members are supposed to represent the people. They're supposed to be the community's watchdogs, not the lapdogs of the superintendent or their administration. We need to make sure that our precious tax dollars are well used to provide children a safe and appropriate and free education. We need change, we need leadership, we need proactive, vocal advocacy, and I hope that you will consider the name Julie Farnbach when you vote for school board on November 4th. Thank you.
Mr. Hill.
Basically, I'm not much of a politician, and I don't pretend to be. I'm basically a parent that's been there. I've had a special ed child go through the system. I know what it's like. I've been a special ed teacher for 20 years, and I've been with about 3 different districts, and I know what's going on. I'd like to say that I would be try to have an open communication with the public, with the groups, make myself available to listen to what they have to say, what their concerns are, what their needs are, and do the best I can for them. Having not been a politician, that's one of the things that I'm there for, is to represent them. If enough people want me to look into something, then that's what we need to do, look into something and be held accountable. And I also agree that we don't work for the superintendent works for the board. And I think that's been a problem here. If a superintendent comes up and says, this is the budget and this is how it is, and everybody approves it, then we're doing what the superintendent wants. We're supposed to be able to sit down and say, okay, this is what we want. And he has to adjust the budget for us, not us for him.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hinkson.
Okay, thank you. I believe that we achieve outstanding and innovative schools through an engaged parent community, the excellence of our teachers, and open and transparent communication. My campaign slogan is every student, every school. And I think that means meeting the needs of every student by providing rich and varied educational experiences. I believe that slogan fits well with the focus of tonight's forum as well. There's much work to be done to foster an environment of trust, respect, and teamwork in our district. This starts with excellent two-way communication that informs and seeks out input from educators, staff, students, and parents alike that's used to guide the decisions that are made. I also support increasing the funding and programs in PE, art, music, and at the elementary school. I think that I have extensive classroom and business background, and those are the perfect blend of experience and insight needed to make decisions that make sense for our students. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Caton.
I've lived in the community since 1989. I've been volunteering since 1990. Granted, volunteering doesn't deal with the issues and the concerns that many of you have. But I've seen the results of some good special ed programs, some mentoring. At Target, when we were there, I had 2 students that came in with their job coaches, working with the job coaches, and obviously that's 20 years ago. I see those young men now working full-time. It's in retail, and they're working full-time. They're part of our community. To see that success and to see that possibility means that there's others out there that maybe we're missing, but there is some successes, there is some rates, and granted, the experience is small. But one of the things that I really want to do is bring the business community in and work more with the business community to find those internships, to find the possibilities to train and educate children so they have a productive future and so they can be part of this community. Every time I see that student, he is smiling. Not a student anymore. He's part of our community.
Thank you, sir. And finally, Mr. Schaefer.
After 17 years, I'm not a politician. I didn't do this to gain power. I did it to be a trustee, help my kids through the process. I'm going to change my, I normally have a closing statement that would be general, but this is a very specialized forum. So I'm going to talk about the fact that the California Department of Education did a verification review, and we got an oral report back. We're waiting for the final report in writing. But their oral comments to our staff, they praised our district for outstanding services to students, praised our teachers for being highly familiar with students, their needs, and what was outlined in their IEPs, praised our general education teachers for being knowledgeable of students' IEPs and services, praised our district for having exceptional child find procedures in place to identify students with special needs. The CDE found our student files to be highly compliant with meetings being held on time, student being invited if appropriate, and goals in all areas of need. The CDE stated they were exceptionally pleased with the level of service, compliance, and commitment to our staff and office to provide appropriate levels of service for students. We're still waiting for the written report on that. My job is the biggest thing that I do is to hire the superintendent, and we've got a good superintendent.
Thank you, sir. I just want to thank all of the candidates for participating this evening. For me, on a personal level, I'm a father and I have 4 children that all have very unique and special needs. And like many of the parents in this community, I take these matters very seriously, and they're very personal to me. I sincerely appreciate your willingness to come today. Your showing up demonstrates the importance that you place on this constituency. And I want to leave you with a thought. There are parents who take these matters very seriously, and they banded together to organize this event tonight. They have very high expectations for their school board. And today you came and you shared your perspectives. And thankfully, we recorded it. So at the conclusion of this, in a few weeks, there will be an election, and there will be people elected to these open positions. The commitments that you made today and the positions that you took are positions that the families in your community will hold you accountable to. And I encourage you to think about that wherever you may go past this, whether you're elected to the board or you continue to be leaders within the community. Again, for myself, I thank you. I also want to thank you on behalf of the AOTS group, our Nicholas Foundation, Temecula Valley Therapy, and the Comprehensive Autism Center. We thank you for your participation and for your willingness to engage in this dialogue. I also want to take a moment and thank the city of Temecula, and there are 2 gentlemen who are really helping to make all of this wonderful technology work, and they're back in the booth, and I'd like to give them a round of applause for the work that they did tonight. Finally, I would like to remind all citizens of Temecula to mark your calendars and head to the poll in November. I thank all the sponsors for making this possible. I encourage you to exercise your right to take part in determining who represents you on your school board, as well as in the other important positions that are being voted on. You can begin casting your votes on October 6th by mail-in ballot, and Election Day is November 4th. I want to let everybody know that immediately after the forum concludes, which will be in just a moment, the candidates will be available to speak with you, and they're going to be in the foyer. So they'd like to meet you, they'd like to share, and it's your opportunity to get to know them as well. I'd like to close with a round of applause for our candidates. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to the members of the community. And I would like everybody to have a great evening. Thank you.